Continuing to discuss polygons, we're going to be talking about the area and the perimeter of all of our different types of quadrilaterals that we've learned about. So remember that the perimeter is the distance around a polygon. And in parentheses it says it's the sum of its side lengths. And hopefully you remember from way back when in second grade or whenever you learned about perimeter that to find the perimeter of an object, all you have to do is add up all the sides. So if the question now described below says what is the perimeter of this polygon? Well, if all I'm doing is finding perimeter, then all I have to do is add up my sides. So I need to add 21.8 plus 13.8 plus 31.2 plus 38.7 plus 28.4. And when I add that all together, I get 133.9. Now, some shapes have a specific formula you can utilize to find the perimeter. And this is true for the perimeter of a parallelogram is found by the formula P equals 2L plus 2W. This is also true of a rectangle, either one. Parallelogram or rectangle, you can find the perimeter by using the formula 2L plus 2W. On your checkup for this particular assignment, there is a formula chart provided that has a bunch of the formulas in it. So they give you a problem. They say that the perimeter of a parallelogram is 64. The width is 6. What is the length? Well, I can plug in what I know. If I know the formula is P equals 2L plus 2W, and I'm told that the perimeter is 64, then I can put 64 where P is. I'm asked to find the length, so I'm going to leave that as L. And I'm told the width is 6, so I can replace W with 6. And then all I have to do is a little bit of math. So 64 equals 2L plus 2 times 6 is 12. If I'm solving for the length, that means I'm going to get the length by itself. I want the numbers on the other side. So I'm going to get rid of that plus 12 by subtracting 12. 64 minus 12 is 52. That equals 2L. And then to get L completely by itself, I am going to divide both sides by 2. And I get that L equals 26. So that's how I could utilize that formula to find the length that I'm missing. So the length would equal 26. Just to give you a visual, I know the width is 6, and then now I found that my length is 26. If you wanted to check it to see if it was right, you could easily add up all the sides to see if you got 64 again. Now, another shape that has a specific formula is a square. To find the perimeter of a square, remember all four sides are the same, so all you have to do is multiply the number of 4 by the length of one side. So 4 times S. So to find the perimeter of a square, you do 4 times S. So you have a problem that says the perimeter of the square is 109. What's the length of the side? Well, I know that perimeter equals 4S. I know that my perimeter in this case is 109, so that means 109 equals 4S. To get 4S by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And when I do that, I get that my side is equal to 27.25. Now, the area of a polygon is the number of square units contained in its interior. So, again, there's some formulas that we need to know. The formula for the area of a rectangle is length times width. So we know that the area of a rectangle is 224. The length is 14. Find the width. So area equals length times width. Plugging in what I know, I was given the area of 224. I was told the length is 14. I don't know the width, so I'm going to leave W there. To get W by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 14. And I'm going to get that my width is equal to 16. So that means I have a rectangle where one side is 14, the other side is 16. And if I multiplied those together, I would get 224 meters squared. Number 9 says, what's the formula for, on page 9, we're talking now about what's the formula for the area of a square. Well, area of a square is really easy because sides are the same, so it's going to be side squared, whatever the side length is. Okay, it's important to note, you may want to write this down somewhere. To get rid of a square, and in parentheses, I'm going to put an exponent by the word square here. I do not mean the geometric shape. You take the square root. To get rid of a square, you take the square root. So if I know the area of a square is equal to 26 kilometers squared, I'm supposed to find the side length. Well, my formula is area equals side squared. I know my area is 26, I'm going to plug that in. That now equals side squared. And to then, as I wrote over here, to get rid of the square, the exponent, this 2 here, all I have to do is take the square root of both sides. Whenever you take the square root of something squared, they're going to cancel each other out. So this square root symbol and this square cancel each other out. I'm left with s on the right side. And the square root of 26 is about 5.1. So that means that I have a square, and each side is 5.1. What is the perimeter of the quadrilateral pictured below? Remember, to find the perimeter, all you have to do, the easiest way, is to add all sides. So all I have to do is 5 plus 5 plus 8 plus 12. And when I add all of that up, I'm going to get 30. Going back to parallelograms, the height of a parallelogram is the length of its, what we call, altitude. When you're talking about the height of a shape, you're talking about the distance between the bases, and that distance must always be perpendicular. So if I'm talking about the altitude, what I'm talking about is the distance right here. And that distance can be drawn inside, or it can be drawn outside of the parallelogram as well. And it will always be denoted by this square on the side, demonstrating that it is a right angle. To find the area of a parallelogram, we have to multiply the base times the height. To find the area of the parallelogram, we have to multiply the base times the height. Remember that the height is the altitude. I'm going to go ahead and label that because that's important. This formula is similar to the area of a rectangle. And remember, going back to our flow chart where we had all the boxes and the arrows, well, since rectangle was underneath a parallelogram, like this, whatever was true for a rectangle had to be true for a parallelogram, which means if the area of the rectangle is base times height, the area of the parallelogram must also be base times height. All right, moving on to a rhombus. So a rhombus, remember, is a parallelogram, but all of its sides are the same, so it's kind of like a square. So it says the area of a rhombus is equal to 1/2 times the product of the length of its diagonals. So I'm going to write that out. Don't worry about this. To find the area of a rhombus, I'm going to do 1/2 of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. And that's the formula I utilize. To find the formula, or to find the area of a trapezoid, you use the formula area equals 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. And this is, to find the area, this formula is based somewhat on the formula for the area of a parallelogram. All right, and moving on to our very last problem, where it says page 25. What's the area of this trapezoid? Well, it's a trapezoid, so I know my formula is 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times my height. So that would be area equals 1/2 times base 1 is 30, base 2 is 20, times my height of 12. If it were me, I would plug all of this in the calculator, and when you do that, you're going to end up with 300. And because it's talking about area, our area is always in square units. It's probably important to write that down because I assume at some point you're going to be selecting units for this quiz. And area is always square units. Or it could be written as units squared. Perimeter is always just units. Okay, there's no exponent with that one. So on your checkup, you have all of these formulas. Every formula that we discussed in the notes or in the lesson is included on this. I would also probably include, if it were me, it says the perimeter of a parallelogram. I would write in or rectangle, because that is also true of a rectangle, is P equals 2L plus 2W. And they've given you the area of a rectangle, square, parallelogram, and rhombus, and lastly, trapezoid. So for number 1, you're supposed to find the perimeter. Well, as you hopefully recall, perimeter means you add up all the sides. So that's 8 plus 15 plus 22. That's all I have to do to find the perimeter. I'm going to add those together. I'm going to get 53. For number 3, it doesn't tell you this, but you are supposed to assume that this is in fact a square. And if it's a square, then I know that I can find the perimeter one of two ways. If it's a square, all the sides are the same. So I can add 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12. Or I can multiply 4 times 12. Either way, I'm going to get that the perimeter is 48. Number 5 says, what's the area of parallelogram ABCD? To find the area of the parallelogram, it is simply my base times my height. My base is 12. My height is 7. And I multiplied 12 times 7, and I'm going to get 84. And I'm going to put units squared so we do not forget that area is in units squared. Number 7 says, what's the area of rectangle ABCD? To find the area of a rectangle, we do base times height or length times width, which is the formula you're given on the formula chart. My length is 8. My width is 15. And when I multiply 8 times 15, I'm going to get 120. And again, that is in units squared. And lastly, number 9, it says, what is the area of the rhombus? If of rhombus EFG, if EG is 14 and HF is 22. So recall, to find the area of a rhombus, it told you it was 1/2 of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. Well, it doesn't matter which one is diagonal 1 and which one is diagonal 2. All I'm doing is 1/2 times 14 times 22. And when I multiply 1/2 times 14 times 22, I'm going to get that the area equals 154. And again, that is in units squared. Do not forget, area is units squared. And perimeter is just in units. It will count the problem wrong if you select the wrong measurement or the wrong ending, like whether it's units or units.